After finals ended, the most popular girl in class organized a graduation trip. She proposed hitchhiking the entire way, crashing in budget hostels and seeking food and shelter from nomad camps along the route. At $200 a head, she said they could ride the Ridgeline Highway all the way to Alvor Base Camp. Freedom and adventure, that was the pitch. My family ran a Highland travel agency. I knew exactly how dangerous that route was. Every year, budget backpackers vanished along the ridgeline without a trace. Young women traveling alone were the most vulnerable. In my past life, I did everything I could to stop it. I called every parent one by one and talked them out of letting their kids go. The whole class backed out, except Phoebe Harding, who left on her own. She went radio silent 3 days in. A week later, her body was found in the Barrens. I got my acceptance letter to Kingsley University. On the first day of orientation, my childhood friend Wyatt Moore stabbed me in front of everyone, screaming that it was my fault. If you hadn't stopped us from going with her, Phoebe wouldn't have died alone. Now you're going to pay for it. Most of my classmates turned on me, forgetting I had saved them. They even cheered and said I deserved it. When I opened my eyes, I had gone back to the day the trip was first pitched. Phoebe Harding, the most popular girl in class, walked up to the front of the classroom and looked out at everyone. Let's go to Alvor Base Camp. We'll take the Ridgeline Highway. We'll head west the whole way, no turning back. We'll see the fall colors at Ember Crossing, the clouds rolling over Caro Flats, and the blue water of Lake Amberley. The kind of freedom you get on the ridgeline? You can never feel that in the city. Highland snow peaks are clean and healing. It's the perfect way to close out our youth. And if we don't end it with a photo at the foot of Mount Alvor, what would even be the point of the summer? The room erupted immediately. Everyone was sold. The ridgeline's a must-drive. You'd regret it forever if you never went. Blasting music with the windows down the whole way. Just thinking about it gets me pumped. That's how you do a graduation trip. A photo at Alvor? That's bragging rights for life. It did not take long for a few people to frown and speak up. Alvor's so far, though. Wouldn't the cost be insane? My family's not exactly loaded. If it's too expensive, count me out. Wyatt Morse turned to me immediately. Nina, doesn't your family run a Highland travel agency? Get us a group rate. An insider deal for the whole class. I looked up at the room and said evenly, a 10-day licensed round trip to Alvor runs $3,000 a person. The entire class gasped. $3,000? Are you kidding? I did not dodge the question. I laid out every part of the package. The entire route's by four-wheel drive SUV on the Ridgeline Highway, no unmarked back roads. You hit every major stop along the way, Ridgeford, Ember Crossing, Lake Amberley, all of it. Quality hotel rooms every night with oxygen tanks provided and all meals included. There's a certified Highland medic and a security escort with the group the whole time. Every passenger's covered by a $200,000 comprehensive Highland accident policy. No hidden fees, no surprise charges. That's industry standard. There isn't a single cent of markup. Highland travel is dangerous. Safety comes first always. You don't cut a single corner on any of it. Wyatt's expression darkened, his tone edged with irritation. Come on, we've all been classmates for 3 years. $500 at cost price, that's all. Just hook us up. I shook my head. My answer did not waver. The agency has operating costs. I'm not running a charity. My family's not a nonprofit. We've got no obligation to hand out free discounts. That lit the room on fire. A crowd swarmed my desk, one accusation piling onto the next. God, Nina, could you be any more selfish? You'd really make money off your own classmates? How do you sleep at night? 3 years together and you still care more about profit than people? That's cold. Phoebe seized the moment and stepped forward to steer the crowd. Don't waste your money, guys. Don't let some greedy business rip you off. She held up her phone, showing the budget travel itinerary she had already put together. I've got the whole route mapped out. It's $200 a person. We hitchhike the whole way, so there's zero transport costs. At night, we stay in budget hostels, and if we find herder camps along the way, we crash there. Herders are generous. Free grilled lamb, warm drinks by the fire. And if we stick to the local back roads instead of the tourist traps, we save on entry fees too. Low cost, free-spirited travel. That's how young people are supposed to see the world. The class went wild. Everyone rallied behind Phoebe. Phoebe always knows what's up. She's a genius at saving money. Forget paying for some overpriced tour group. Backpacking's the real experience. Then, the barb swung straight at me. Hope your family's little agency goes under. All you care about is money. You've got zero heart. After tearing into me, they went right back to buzzing about the scenery and the culture they would find on the road. They argued over what music to play and what poses to strike for photos. They were so young and so foolish. They did not have the faintest idea what that road held. The environment alone was lethal. The ridgeline climbed and dropped in altitude, without warning. A single day could cycle through all 4 seasons, and clear skies could give way to blinding snowstorms that sealed off the mountain passes in minutes. In the Barrens, there was no signal for 100 miles in any direction, no supplies, and no working navigation. One wrong turn, and a person was simply gone. Highland pulmonary edema and cerebral edema struck fast. They could kill in as little as an hour. Then, there were the animals. Wolf packs roamed the wastelands at night. Sharp-nosed and patient, they would quickly circle anyone who strayed from a group. Highland brown bears were fiercely territorial and did not retreat from humans. Vultures wheeled overhead at all hours, watching for anyone on the ground who had stopped moving. However, worse than the weather, worse than the animals, were the people. My family ran a travel agency, so I had heard every story. Many young men and women chased the backpacking trend and hitched free rides the whole way, only to never be heard from again. Once, a female college student got picked up by an unlicensed driver and was never seen again. Another time, a group of male backpackers was robbed at knife point, stripped of everything, and dumped in a sub-zero snowfield to freeze to death. There were countless disappearances in the Barrens, and the vast majority of them were not accidents. Behind almost every one was deliberate, premeditated crime. In my previous life, I was soft-hearted and naive. I did everything in my power to save my classmates. Even knowing I would lose money, I dropped the tour price to $2,000 a person and covered the difference out of my own pocket. All I wanted was for these people I had spent 3 years with to make it through the trip alive. However, they cursed me for it anyway. Not a single one of them believed the Highlands were dangerous. I contacted every parent and talked them all out of going. The only one I could not stop was Phoebe. She went backpacking into the Barrens alone. 3 days later, she lost all contact. 7 days after that, her body was found in the Barrens. She had been assaulted before she died. I thought the people I saved would be grateful. Instead, I died at the hands of my own childhood friend. Even after I was gone, those ungrateful classmates still spat on my name. This time around, after being reborn, I kept my mouth shut and just watched my classmates whip themselves into a frenzy in the same classroom. I did not warn them. I did not say a single word. Senior year was over. They were all adults now. They could answer for their own choices. I packed up my bag and headed for the door, leaving the noise of the classroom behind me. 3 girls hurried after me, looking slightly nervous. Nina, we looked up the market rate for Alvor trips on our own. $3,000 is completely fair. Your family's agency has always had a great reputation, top-tier accommodations, meals included, full medical and security staff, and no forced shopping stops. We're too scared to go backpacking. The thought of something going wrong on the road terrifies us. We want to sign up for your family's license tour. Is that okay? I nodded and agreed, without hesitation. I remembered these girls. In my previous life, they had stayed neutral the entire time. They never piled on with the insults, and they never trashed my name after I died. They were not part of the ungrateful crowd. Before long, 3 more girls came over on their own to sign up. Including me, that made 7 of us in a small, licensed tour group. On the other side of the room, Phoebe was in full swing, tallying up head count for the backpacking trip. She had collected 33 sign-ups. Most of them were boys who liked jumping on whatever bandwagon was loudest. There were also a handful of girls who wanted to take enough photos to build a social media following off the trip. Between them, the list covered almost every single person who had turned on me in my past life. When Phoebe found out I had put together a 7-person premium tour, she laughed openly at the 6 girls. Some people just have more money than sense. They just love throwing it away. $200 or $3,000, you're looking at the same mountain at the end. When we get there safe and sound, you'll wish you hadn't wasted all that cash. Nina's treating you like walking wallets, and you don't even see it. The rest of the students around her joined right in with the jeering. Paying for a tour package is basically paying an idiot tax. You're just letting the agency fleece you. If you've got money to burn, you'd have more fun backpacking with us. I looked at this crowd of blindly overconfident teenagers and felt nothing but contempt. 33 of them marching into the Barrens together. I did not want to picture how that would end. I turned to the 6 girls traveling with me and gave them a few instructions. Just pack warm layers, sunglasses, and an insulated water bottle. That's all you need to bring. Give me your IDs, and I'll handle the frontier permits for everyone. As for oxygen tanks, medication, and outdoor gear, the agency will have all of it ready. A boy nearby overheard the words frontier permit and immediately scoffed. You don't even need a frontier permit if you take the back roads. That's a total waste of time. Spending money, just to spend it. Must be nice being rich. Laughter broke out again. I did not respond. I set the departure for 3 days later at 8 a.m., and we would be meeting at the front gate of the school. Then, I turned and walked out of the classroom without looking back at the noise behind me. Every one of them was lost in their cheap fantasy of freedom. None of them knew that the wilderness was already waiting. I went home and told my parents about the 7-person student tour. My family had been running Highland travel routes for over a decade and understood every risk along the way. My parents did not cut a single corner on the safety preparations. My parents arranged 2 full-time guides with 10 years of Ridgeline experience each, 2 certified Highland emergency medics to ride with the group at all times, and 2 professional security personnel for protection throughout the trip. The convoy consisted of 5 brand-new 4-wheel drive SUVs. 2 carried our group of 7 passengers. The other 3 were loaded entirely with emergency supplies. Each vehicle was stocked with triple the necessary drinking water and high-calorie rations, along with heavy-duty down parkas and extreme weather sleeping bags. Medical-grade oxygen tanks, altitude sickness medication, and trauma first aid kits were all packed and ready, and the convoy carried multiple satellite phones and satellite GPS beacons. Dad was serious when he spoke. There's no cell signal through the entire stretch of the Barrens. All navigation goes dead. In extreme weather, even a compass can fail. The only thing you can rely on out there is the guides reading the stars to find direction. Supplies cannot run short. I was going through the equipment checklist when someone knocked on the front door. I opened it to find Wyatt and Phoebe standing outside, one behind the other. The 2 of them walked in without a shred of courtesy and went straight to asking for a handout. Nina, the 33 of us don't have enough funds for the backpacking trip. Your agency can sponsor us a bus and a full-time driver. Throw in some free oxygen tanks and trail food too. Think of it as supporting your classmates' graduation dream trip. I looked them both in the eye and refused without hesitation. Vehicles and staff cost money to operate. I have no obligation to hand them out for free. Phoebe's expression went cold instantly. She pulled out her phone, filmed the inside of my house, and posted it online. She played up the victim angle for the camera, her voice pitched to sound wounded and helpless. This travel agency owner's daughter goes to our school. She's always been stuck up and standoffish. Her own classmates hit a rough patch planning their graduation trip, and she won't lift a single finger to help. It's cold-blooded capitalism. All about the money, zero humanity. I'm asking everyone online to help us boycott this heartless agency. The comments poured in immediately. Business owners nowadays literally only care about money. So cold. It's just a small favor between classmates. Why be so stingy about it? Highland travel is already expensive enough. Can't blame students for opting to do a budget trip. Wyatt stepped forward and pressed me directly. Nina, you're so selfish that it's unreal. You won't give anyone an inch. We grew up together. We already promised we'd start officially dating once we got to college. You won't even do this one small thing for me? Then forget it. We're done. I looked up at Wyatt, at this boy I had grown up alongside since we were children, and all I felt was cold disappointment. Wyatt, the only reason you got into a top university is that I tutored you for free for 3 years. But you're always taking Phoebe's side and going out of your way to put me down. I never wanted this relationship in the first place, so calling it off works just fine for me. You think threatening a breakup scares me? I've been sick of you for a long time. Don't flatter yourself. The color drained from Wyatt's face, and he could not get a single word out. Phoebe had not expected me to be that blunt either. The 2 of them threw out a few parting threats and stormed out of my house. I shut the front door and went back to checking the travel supplies. The wounds from my past life were carved too deep. I was not going to go soft again. On the morning of departure, 5 SUVs were parked in a clean row outside the school gate at 8 a.m. sharp. All 7 of us girls had changed into professional hiking jackets, and matching sets of outdoor gear were lined up neatly beside each vehicle. The guides, medics, and security team were all in position on time, the convoy orderly and precise. Passers-by on the street stopped to stare. Less than 10 minutes later, Phoebe arrived with her group of 33. I turned and looked, and the gap between the 2 groups was obvious at a glance. Everyone in the backpacking group wore shorts and t-shirts, completely wrong for Highland weather. Each of them carried nothing but a small day pack with a handful of snacks and a change of clothes inside. There was no cold weather gear, no oxygen tanks, and no emergency medication among any of them. Not a single person in the entire group had even brought an insulated water bottle. One of the girls on our team could not stand it and went over to warn them. The temperature swing in the Highlands is extreme. It drops below 5 degrees at night. Dressed like that, you're going to get frostbite. Also, there's no cell signal in the Barrens. If you go in blind, you'll get lost in no time. How do you not even have a guide? Phoebe did not bother hiding her disdain. Don't be so dramatic. We can ask the herders for help along the way. We can always borrow a sheepskin coat if it gets cold. The GPS on our phone is accurate enough. We don't need some extra guide tagging along. Paying top dollar for a babysitter is just a waste of money. The 30-plus students behind her laughed and jeered along with her. I reached out and gently held back my teammate who wanted to keep arguing, shaking my head. Don't bother. Just respect everyone's right to make their own choices. I gave the signal, and our SUV convoy pulled out smoothly. On the other side of the road, Phoebe's group stood at the curb with their thumbs out, flagging down rides. Before long, they managed to stop a westbound freight truck convoy. There were several trucks in the line, and the convoy leader had an honest face. He was a regular long-haul driver, nothing suspicious about him. He agreed to let the backpackers ride along. We're headed down the ridgeline anyway. $50 a head for gas, and you can hop on. Over 30 students cheered and scrambled to climb into the truck beds and passenger cabins. Phoebe stood at the front of the lead truck bed, waving at our convoy and shouting after us, "See you at Alvor. Have a great trip, suckers." Wyatt joined in right behind her, his eyes full of contempt. I watched them through the rearview mirror. I knew, with complete certainty, that their excitement would turn to despair soon enough. Two groups set off toward the west at the same time, heading for very different fates. Our licensed tour followed a strict, scientifically paced schedule to deal with the altitude, so we moved slowly. On the first day, the convoy stopped at Ridgeford so everyone could rest and adjust to the elevation. On the second day, we reached Ember Crossing, and the scenery along the way gradually shifted into highland terrain. The altitude increased in careful stages to minimize the risk of altitude sickness. The medics on our team ran full blood oxygen and heart rate checks on everyone twice a day, morning and evening. Two of the girls developed mild dizziness, and their lips started turning purple. The medics brought over medical-grade oxygen tanks right away and walked them through slow, steady breathing. Within a few minutes, both of them had returned to normal. At every stop along the route, the guides set aside plenty of time for sightseeing. The girls took countless photos along the scenic photography trail at Ember Crossing. At the Sky Terrace in Caro Flats, everyone got out of the vehicles to take pictures and soak it in. At the foot of the three peaks in Dawnridge Valley, the girls were so thrilled they could barely stand still, snapping photos of each other nonstop. Every night, we checked into climate-controlled hotels with built-in oxygen systems. The rooms had full oxygen saturation, so there was no risk of altitude sickness flaring up overnight. Every meal featured local Highland cuisine, with as much Highland beef stew as anyone could eat, plus local free-range chicken soup, Highland grain flatbread, and fresh plateau vegetables on the side. The girls sat around the dinner table, one compliment rolling into the next. $3,000 was worth every single cent. We haven't had to worry about a thing this whole trip. It's safe, it's comfortable, and it's 1,000 times better than stumbling around on some backpacking trip. Thank God, we didn't follow them on that disaster. We'd be miserable right now. I sat off to the side listening, and all I did was smile faintly. Meanwhile, Phoebe's group had an exceptionally smooth first 3 days. The freight trucks drove steadily the whole way, and midway through the route they passed a herder settlement. The group showed up uninvited and asked to stay the night, and the herders were kind enough to take them in. They ate freshly roasted lamb for free and drank spiced herders' tea straight from the pot. Phoebe seized every opportunity, posting over a dozen short clips and updates to her social media every single day. Her captions were loud and boastful. $200 and we're on our way to Alvor. You can't put a price on youth. She made a point of tagging my family's travel agency account, taking a not-so-subtle jab at our premium pricing. The comment section was flooded with praise, every last one of them jumping on the bandwagon. Budget travel is the real way to do it. But paying for a tour package is literally just an idiot tax. Young people should be brave enough to rough it. Don't let businesses squeeze you dry. You're looking at the same mountains either way. No reason to spend 10 times more for nothing. Wyatt shared her posts at the same time and openly mocked me for making a big deal out of nothing. The Highlands aren't nearly as dangerous as people make them sound. That's just travel agencies drumming up fear to sell packages. Some people just want to make a dishonest buck, so they blow the risks way out of proportion on purpose. The backpacking group's sense of superiority grew with every passing day. Every single one of them was now convinced that my earlier safety warnings had been nothing but lies. They even made plans in their group chat to take a big group photo, once they reached Alvor, and send it to me the second it was taken just to rub it in my face. The whole chat was on board. All of them were waiting to watch me eat my words. What they did not know was that the truck drivers were only going as far as the junction. Beyond that point, the blizzards and the dead silence of the Barrens were waiting for them. The freight truck convoy pulled off at the Black Fork Junction around noon on the fourth day. Beyond that point, the paved state road ended, splitting into two distinct paths: the official, heavily maintained Ridgeline Highway that curved south toward the managed scenic passes, and the dirt tracks of the northern Barrens, an unmapped wasteland of jagged shale, dry riverbeds, and zero cellular infrastructure. "This is as far as we go, kids," the lead truck driver said, hopping down to check his tire pressure. He pointed a grease-stained thumb toward the north. "If you're sticking to the main road, you'll have to wait for the public shuttle at the junction station. But if you're planning on walking those back routes without an escort or a local permit, I'd turn around now. There's a storm brewing over the pass." Phoebe adjusted her designer sunglasses and smiled, tossing her long hair over her shoulder. "Thanks for the lift, Uncle, but we've got this handled. Young people don't fear a little dust. Besides, taking the main shuttle costs $40 a seat. We're doing this authentic." The truck driver looked at her thin canvas sneakers, her cropped windbreaker, and the 33 teenagers behind her carrying lightweight nylon school backpacks. He shook his head, spat onto the dirt, and muttered under his breath, "Fools. Mountain weather doesn't care about your youth." Within 20 minutes, the trucks roared off, leaving a cloud of gray exhaust that quickly dissolved into the freezing mountain wind. The atmosphere in the group shifted almost immediately. At 11,000 feet, the air was sharp and noticeably thin. The sun was still bright overhead, but the wind carried an icy edge that cut straight through cotton t-shirts and summer hoodies. "Phoebe, it's actually really cold," one of the girls, Mia, shivered, wrapping her arms around herself. "Are you sure there's a herder camp nearby? My phone lost signal 5 miles back." Wyatt stepped up beside Phoebe, puffing out his chest. "Don't panic, Mia. Phoebe did all the research. The offline map showed a satellite settlement just 8 miles up this trail. We'll be sitting by a fire eating roasted mutton by sundown, right, Phoebe?" "Of course," Phoebe said quickly, though her fingers were fidgeting behind her back as she refreshed her frozen phone screen. "It's just 8 miles. That's a light hike. Put your hoods up and let's move. We'll film a walkthrough video." While the sun is still out, the group set off along the unpaved track. For the first 2 miles, excitement kept them going. They sang high school anthems, snapped photos of the stark gray cliffs, and joked about how much money they were saving compared to Nina's overpriced tourist trap. By the 4th mile, the singing stopped. The trail rose sharply into a narrow gorge known locally as the Devil's Funnel. The atmospheric pressure plummeted. Several boys who had been loudly boasting earlier began panting heavily, their lips turning a faint, alarming shade of blue. "My head, it feels like it's in a vice," one of the track team athletes muttered, stopping to lean against a boulder. He clutched his temples, groaning, as a surge of nausea hit him. "You're just out of shape, man," Wyatt sneered, though his own breath was coming in short, shallow gasps. "Keep moving. If we stop, we'll freeze." They had no water. The small plastic bottles they had packed in the morning were already empty, and there were no streams in the high-altitude shale desert, only patches of dirty, gray snow tucked into the rock crevices. When a boy named Ethan tried to eat a handful of the snow to quench his thirst, he was hit with severe stomach cramps within 20 minutes. Worse still, the sky was changing. The bright afternoon sun was suddenly swallowed by a massive front of dark, purple-black clouds rolling over the ridge like smoke. The temperature dropped by 15 degrees in less than 20 minutes. While Phoebe's group was struggling through the gorge, our 5 SUV convoy was cruising smoothly along the paved bypass of the Ridgeline Highway. Inside our lead vehicle, the air conditioning was set to a comfortable 72 degrees, enriched with continuous low-pressure medical oxygen pumped through the vents. The interior smelled faintly of tea tree oil and warm fleece. "Nina, look at the sky over the northern peaks," whispered Chloe, one of the girls sitting beside me. She pointed out the tinted window toward the jagged black mountains in the distance. "It looks scary over there." Our lead guide, Uncle Chen, a veteran who had navigated the Highland routes for 15 years, glanced at the satellite weather receiver mounted on the dashboard. "That's a sudden squall hitting the northern Barrens," Chen said gravely, adjusting his headset. "Severe drop in pressure, gale force winds, and heavy snow coming down within the hour. Anyone caught out in the unmaintained back passes without winter shelter tonight is in serious trouble." The girls in my car exchange quiet, wide-eyed looks. Aren't the others going through that area? Chloe asked, her voice dropping to a whisper. Phoebe said they were taking the herder back paths to avoid the toll gates. They made their choice, I said smoothly, taking a sip of warm chrysanthemum tea from my insulated flask. They were told the cost of safety. They decided safety was a scam. I opened my laptop, which was connected to our vehicle's mobile satellite hub. On the public travel forums, Phoebe's last post from 4 hours ago was still trending. Day 4. Backpacking through the wild Barrens. Who needs $3,000 tours when you have freedom and good friends? Hashtag graduation trip, hashtag budget travel. The comment section was still filled with mindless applause from internet onlookers who had never set foot on a mountain in their lives. I closed the tab. I didn't feel joy, nor did I feel pity. I only felt the quiet, cold weight of reality unfolding exactly as it had to. 10 miles to the north, reality had arrived with brutal force. The blizzard hit Phoebe's group just as the sun dipped behind the western peaks. The wind didn't just blow, it roared through the gorge like a freight train, whipping loose shale and blinding white snow directly into their faces. The temperature fell to 0 degrees Fahrenheit, then plummeted further. "Phoebe, where's the herder camp?" screamed Mia, her voice cracking with pure terror as she clutched her thin denim jacket around her freezing frame. Her hands were already numb, her fingernails turning dark violet. "You said it was 8 miles. We've walked 10. Phoebe's face was deathly pale. Her high-end smartphone was dead, its battery instantly drained by the extreme cold. It should be around here," Phoebe yelled back over the howling gale, her teeth chattering so violently she could barely articulate the words. The post online said there was a winter pasture nearby. What Phoebe didn't know, what any basic travel guide would have told her, was that Highland herders only used the northern passes during the height of midsummer. By late autumn, all sheep and herders migrated down into the southern valleys. The pasture she was looking for was nothing more than an abandoned, stone-walled perimeter filled with frozen mud and rotting wooden fence posts. "There's no camp," a boy screamed, running up from the rear of the line. "There's nothing here, just rocks and wind." Panic erupted. The 33 teenagers, who hours ago had been laughing and mocking my family's agency, collapsed into a chaotic, screaming mob. "I want to go home," a girl sobbed, throwing herself onto the frozen ground. "My feet hurt. I can't feel my toes." "Get up, stupid. If you lie down, you'll die," a boy yelled, kicking at her boots in a desperate bid to move her. Wyatt grabbed Phoebe by her shoulders, shaking her furiously. "Phoebe, what do we do? You brought us out here. Fix this." Phoebe shoved him away, her eyes wild with fear. "Don't touch me. How was I supposed to know the herders wouldn't be here? You all followed me because you wanted to save money. Don't put this all on me." "You lied to us," another boy roared, lunging forward. "You said you had the whole route mapped out." Before a fight could break out, a long, low howl echoed down the ridge through the darkness. The entire group froze. Through the curtain of blowing snow, 50 yards away on the ridgeline, 3 pairs of yellow, glowing eyes emerged from the blackness. Highland gray wolves. The howl sent a wave of icy horror through every student standing in the dark. The wolves didn't attack immediately. They were experienced predators of the Barrens. They knew how to play the waiting game. They circled the edges of the group, their shadows silent and quick against the snow, testing the boundary of the weak, terrified human intruders. Fire. Someone whispered in a trembling voice. "We need fire. Wolves are scared of fire." "With what?" Wyatt yelled, tears of terror freezing on his cheeks. "Everything is wet. We don't have matches. We don't have axes." In a frenzy of survival instinct, the boys began ripping open their light canvas backpacks, dumping clothes, plastic snacks, and paper notebooks onto the snow. Someone produced a cheap disposable lighter from his pocket. His hands were shaking so violently it took 20 attempts to strike a flame. They lit a pile of school textbooks and spare shirts. The small flames sputtered to life, casting an eerie orange glow over 33 pale, soot-stained faces. The wolves retreated a few paces into the shadow, but they did not leave. They sat on the surrounding rocks, watching the flame burn through the scant fuel. "This won't last an hour," a girl stammered, wrapping a thin towel around her freezing head. "What happens when the clothes burn out?" No one answered. The dark truth of their situation had finally pierced through their youthful arrogance. They were trapped in an unmapped zone without cell service, without cold weather survival gear, without food, without water, and without a guide. Nobody in the outside world knew where they were because they had deliberately bypassed the official check-in points at the junction to avoid paying the registration fees. As the night wore on, the physical toll became unbearable. Altitude sickness struck the group with ruthless severity. Without oxygen support, for students began coughing up pink, frothy sputum, the classic sign of high-altitude pulmonary edema, HAPE. Their lungs were literally filling with fluid. "Help! I can't breathe." One of the boys gasped, clutching his chest as he rolled in the dirt beside the dying fire. "Phoebe, do you have medicine?" Mia cried, holding her dying friend's hand. Phoebe sat curled up in a corner against a rock wall, her designer clothes covered in mud, her face hollow and terrified. She didn't answer. She pulled her coat tighter around herself, hiding behind two taller boys to block the wind, completely ignoring the suffering around her. When a younger girl tried to crawl closer to the center of the small fire to share the warmth, Phoebe shoved her back. "Stay on your own side." Phoebe snapped, her voice stripped of all its former charm and sweetness, revealing the ugly core underneath. "I lit this section of the fire. Find your own wood." The crowd looked at Phoebe in horror. This was the girl they had idolized, the popular, generous, brilliant leader who promised them freedom and adventure. In the face of real danger, she was colder than the mountain wind. Wyatt stared at Phoebe, his mind shattered. He remembered how Nina had always taken care of him, how Nina had spent 3 years preparing detailed notes for him so he could pass his exams, how Nina had calmly warned them about the real dangers of altitude sickness, wolves, and hypothermia. He had called Nina a selfish, cold-blooded capitalist. He had called Phoebe a savior. Now, sitting in the freezing dark with his fingers losing sensation and his lungs burning like fire, Wyatt looked at his empty hands and felt a terrifying, crushing regret. If I had just listened to Nina, if I had just paid for the tour. While the northern Barrens turned into a nightmare of ice and wolves, our convoy pulled into the high-altitude sanctuary of Lake Amberley. The agency's private camp was built on a protected plateau overlooking the sapphire waters of the lake. Large, heavy-duty dome tents equipped with internal heating systems, raised wooden floorboards, and thick insulation stood in a neat row. Outside, the wind howled against the reinforced canvas, but inside, the air was warm, rich with oxygen, and filled with the mouth-watering scent of simmering Highland mutton stew. The 6 girls who had traveled with me sat on plush folding chairs, wrapped in heavy down blankets provided by the agency. "Nina, try this," Chloe said, handing me a steaming bowl of thick barley soup, topped with sliced beef. "The chef said it helps with blood circulation." "Thank you," I smiled, taking the bowl. The girls were relaxed and laughing, checking the photos they had taken. Throughout the day, their phones were connected to the camp's satellite Wi-Fi network. "Look at this shot of the sunset over the valley," one girl exclaimed, showing her screen around. My parents already replied. They said it looks like a paradise. Then, Chloe's face fell slightly as she scrolled through her feed. "Hey, look at the travel forum," she murmured, her tone turning solemn. The forum was in chaos. Several parents of the 33 missing students had realized their children hadn't checked in for over 12 hours. They had tried calling their phones, only to hit deadlines. Desperate posts were popping up everywhere. "Has anyone seen the budget student group led by Phoebe Harding?" They were heading toward the Barrens back roads. "My daughter hasn't called since noon. Please help. My son is in that group. They don't have emergency beacons." Comments on Phoebe's earlier boastful post had taken a sudden, sharp turn. "Wait, they went into the northern pass right before the blizzard hit. Are they insane? That back road has 0 signal and active wolf packs. Where are their guides? Don't tell me they went in without a licensed escort." Underneath the panicking posts, someone tagged my family agency's official account. "Isn't Nina in the same class? Doesn't her family run a travel agency? Did she take them?" I took a slow sip of my hot soup, picked up my phone, and posted a single, clear statement from our official agency handle. "Notice. Our agency's 7-person licensed tour group reached Lake Amberley Base Camp safely at 6 p.m. today under full guide and medical supervision. All members are in peak health." Regarding the 33 individuals mentioned in recent posts, they explicitly rejected our agency's licensed safety protocol, and chose an independent, unpermitted route. We have no record of their itinerary or current coordinates. We urge their legal guardians to contact official mountain search and rescue immediately. The post went viral within minutes. The internet, which had spent 3 days bashing my family for being greedy, suddenly woke up to the horrific reality. Wait, so Nina's agency offered a safe package, and they refused it to save money. They went into the Highland Barrens on a $200 hitchhiking trip? Are they crazy? God. 33 kids freezing in the dark right now. The parents must be losing their minds. I turned off my phone screen, laid it face down on the table, and looked out the reinforced window of the tent at the dark snowstorm raging outside. The wheel of fate had turned. The consequences were falling exactly where they belonged. Back in the devil's funnel. Midnight brought the breaking point. The makeshift fire had burned down to glowing white ash. There was nothing left to burn. They had shredded their spare clothes, their notebooks, even their wallets. The cold hit them like a wall of solid ice. I can't feel my legs, a boy wailed, stumbling forward on feet that had gone completely dead and pale gray. I can't feel my legs. Phoebe, give me your extra coat, a girl named Sarah screamed, lunging toward Phoebe. You brought 2 jackets. Give me one. No. Get off me. Phoebe shrieked, striking out with her fists. Buy your own coat. It's my money, you selfish bitch. Sarah roared. The stress, terror, and imminent threat of death stripped away every layer of civilized restraint. The 33 students, once polite classmates sitting in the same clean room, turned on each other like wild animals. Fights broke out over the remaining thermal blankets. Boys shoved girls out of the small windbreak alcove under the cliff to claim the slightly warmer spot for themselves. Accusations, screams, and sobbing echoed through the canyon, mixing with the relentless howling of the mountain gale. Wyatt sat in the snow, watching the carnage with dead, hollow eyes. His fingers were blue. His body shivered so violently his joints ached with deep, throbbing pain. He looked at Phoebe, who was currently hiding behind a large rock, clutching her second jacket tightly to her chest while ignoring a crying classmate who was collapsed beside her. This was the girl I chose, Wyatt thought, a terrible laugh escaping his frost-covered lips. I chose her over Nina. I betrayed Nina for this monster. He remembered the orientation day in his previous life, though he didn't know it was a past life. The vivid memory of his own hatred flushed through his brain, like poison. In this moment of pure, agonizing truth, Wyatt realized that Nina hadn't been keeping them from freedom. She had been standing between them and the abyss, and they had pushed her away. Nina. Wyatt whimpered into the dark wind, his voice breaking into a whisper. Nina saved me, but there was no answer. Only the cold stars above the peak, looking down with complete indifference. At dawn on the 5th day, the blizzard finally subsided, leaving the northern Barrens under a thick blanket of pristine, deadly snow. At 7 a.m., 3 heavy-duty mountain search and rescue (SAR) track vehicles rumbled into the Black Fork Junction. The local police and emergency services had been mobilized overnight after 28 panicking families converged on the Provincial Emergency Bureau. Because our agency convoy was equipped with high-powered radio relays, Uncle Chun and our team were asked by the SAR commander to assist as local route advisors. I stood beside the commander in the mobile command trailer, looking at the thermal imaging map of the valley. The back route through the Devil's Funnel is completely blocked by drift snow. The SAR commander said, his face grim. If they were caught in that gorge overnight without thermal gear, the survival rate is extremely low. They likely pushed toward the old sheep pens for miles past the funnel. Uncle Chun suggested, pointing to a spot on the terrain map. It's the only natural windbreak, but that area is known wolf territory. The commander nodded and turned to the rescue team. Deploy the drones and snowmobiles. Move out. I watched from the SUV window as the rescue team disappeared into the white wasteland. It took 4 hours for the rescue units to locate the group. What they found made even the veteran mountain rescue team gasp in horror. 33 teenagers were scattered around the stone ruins of the sheep pen. None of them looked like human beings anymore. Their skin was blackened by frostbite, their clothes torn to rags from fighting for warmth, their eyes wild and hollowed out by severe trauma. 7 students had suffered severe high-altitude frostbite, requiring immediate amputation of fingers and toes. 3 students who had developed acute HAPE were unconscious, their lung function critically failing. and Phoebe Harding was found huddled in the tiny emergency survival bag that she had secretly hidden in the bottom of her backpack, a single-person thermal wrap that she had kept hidden from the rest of the group all night while letting others freeze. When the rescue workers pulled her out of the bag, the rest of the surviving students turned on her with red eyes. She had a thermal bag. Mia screamed, her face contorted with pure, hysterical rage. She had an emergency bag the whole time. She watched us freeze and didn't tell anyone. She lied to us. She's a murderer, another boy howled, trying to throw himself at Phoebe despite his frozen feet. The rescue workers had to physically separate the students to prevent them from tearing Phoebe apart on the spot. Phoebe sobbed, hiding her dark, frostbitten face behind her bruised hands, screeching hysterically as the cameras from the news team captured every second of her disgrace. Wyatt was carried out on a stretcher. Both of his hands were wrapped in thick medical gauze, the black, dead tissue of his fingers visible under the light. As his stretcher was wheeled past our agency convoy parked at the rescue base, he raised his head with immense effort. Through the clear glass window of the SUV, he saw me. I was sitting comfortably in the passenger seat, wearing a clean white fleece jacket, holding a warm cup of coffee, looking down at him with an expression of quiet, unbothered calm. Wyatt's breath hitched. Tears of pure, bitter agony poured from his eyes. "Nina," he rasped, his cracked lips bleeding as he stretched out a bandaged arm toward the window. I was wrong. Nina. I didn't open the window. I didn't smile. I didn't scowl. I simply lifted my coffee cup, took a quiet sip, and turned my eyes back to the mountain scenery. The news of the Highland budget travel disaster swept across the national news cycle like a hurricane. Headline after headline dominated the front pages. Tragedy in the Barrens, 33 unlicensed student backpackers rescued after severe blizzard, 12 students face permanent amputation due to frostbite, 3 in critical care. The ugly truth behind the $200 Alvor dream, clout chaser. Abandoned classmates in danger. Videos of Phoebe being cursed out by her classmates while being loaded into the ambulance went viral online, receiving tens of millions of views. The internet users who had previously attacked my family's agency performed an instant violent turn. My God, that Phoebe girl is an actual sociopath. She hid a personal thermal bag while her classmates were getting frostbite, and people were calling the travel agency greedy. $3,000 for medical staff, oxygen, and safety gear. Sounds like a bargain now. The travel agency daughter, Nina, literally warned them. She laid out all the safety rules, and they insulted her. Talk about self-inflicted destruction. Don't blame the travel agency for your own stupidity. Within 48 hours, the reputation of my family's agency shot to an all-time high. Our booking lines were flooded with calls from affluent clients, schools, and corporate groups who praised our strict safety standards, professional medical escort system, and uncompromising stance on risk management. Meanwhile, the families of the 33 injured students turned their rage entirely onto Phoebe and Wyatt. The hospital lobby in the provincial capital became a war zone. Parents of the students who faced amputation gathered outside Phoebe's hospital room, screaming demands for compensation and criminal charges. She organized the trip. She collected the money. She took my son into a dead zone without a permit. One mother shrieked, breaking down in tears before the television cameras. She ruined my boy's life. She belongs in prison. Phoebe's family, who were ordinary middle-class workers, were completely ruined. Faced with millions of dollars in medical bills, lawsuits from 32 families, and potential criminal charges for illegal tour organization and reckless endangerment, Phoebe's parents sold their apartment, their car, and all their assets, yet it wasn't even enough to cover the initial legal retainers. Phoebe herself suffered permanent frostbite damage to her ears and toes. The popular, beautiful girl who used to command the attention of the entire school was now a scarred outcast, facing criminal prosecution and public hatred wherever she went. Wyatt's situation was no better. His hands suffered severe cold damage, resulting in the partial amputation of 3 fingers on his right hand. His dream of playing university basketball was instantly destroyed. His family blew through their savings paying for his skin graft surgeries, and his parents blamed him entirely for putting his faith in Phoebe instead of sticking with his lifelong childhood friend. 2 months later, Kingsley University campus was bathed in the warm, bright sunlight of late autumn. Green and gold leaves fluttered down along the wide brick avenues as Thousands of top-tier freshmen gathered for the main orientation assembly. I walked through the grand iron gates of Kingsley, dressed in a sharp, tailored ivory suit jacket and dark slacks, carrying my student enrollment packet. Beside me, Chloe and the 5 other girls from our tour group walked with light, happy steps. We had become close friends over the summer, and all of us had successfully entered top departments at the university. Nina, over here. Chloe pointed to the welcome banner near the main auditorium. The student council is handing out the freshman honors pins. I smiled and walked toward the sign-in booth. As I took my seat in the front row reserved for high-achieving freshmen, a murmur rose from the back of the auditorium. I turned my head casually. Standing near the edge of the doorway was Wyatt. He looked unrecognizable. He had lost at least 20 pounds. His face was gaunt, his skin sickly pale. His right hand was wrapped in a black compression glove to hide his shortened, amputated fingers. He didn't have his enrollment paper in his hand. Kingsley University had revoked his admission offer following the legal scandal and his involvement in the illegal Highland expedition. He was here simply as a visitor, desperately looking for someone. When his eyes met mine, a tremor ran through his whole body. He took 3 halting steps forward, his eyes filled with a desperate, broken hope. He moved toward me just like he had on orientation day in my previous life. In my past life, he had walked up this very aisle, pulled out a knife, and plunged it into my heart while screaming that I was a murderer. In this life, he walked up the aisle, collapsed to his knees 5 steps away from my desk, and burst into bitter, helpless tears. Nina. Wyatt sobbed, his voice cracking violently as he reached up with his gloved, ruined hand. Nina, please talk to me. I was wrong. I was so wrong. The entire freshman class turned to look at him. Security guards immediately stepped out from the sides of the hall, moving swiftly toward the disturbance. I sat in my chair, upright and posture perfect, looking down at the broken boy, kneeling on the marble floor. I didn't flinch. I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel regret. Excuse me, student, the head of security said sternly, grabbing Wyatt by his arms and lifting him off his knees. You don't have a valid campus pass. You need to leave the premises immediately. Nina, tell them you know me. Wyatt shrieked as he was dragged backward toward the exit. We grew up together. Nina, give me one more chance. Please. I looked him straight in the eyes, my voice cool, clear, and perfectly audible. Across the quiet hall. I don't know him. The security guards dragged Wyatt out the double doors. The doors slammed shut, cutting off his pathetic cries completely. The auditorium returned to quiet. The dean stepped up to the podium, clearing his throat and smiling at the bright, ambitious faces sitting before him. Welcome to Kingsley University, class of the new semester. Today marks the beginning of your adulthood. Here, every choice you make will shape your future, and every adult must take full responsibility for the path they choose to walk. I sat in the front row, bathed in the bright, clean sunlight streaming through the stained glass windows. I raised my head, adjusted the gold honors pin on my lapel, and smiled. My new life had just begun.